We're going to begin studying some more of prophecy and the news. And we're going to begin with a couple of random headlines tonight. We're going to be kind of all over the place tonight. But these headlines are current and they feed into what we've been talking about in the days that we're facing in the antiChrist system that's coming. So here's just a headline. The Chief Experience Officer, I don't know what that is. An experience officer? The Chief Experience Officer at this university, Tom Ellett, told approximately 600 students on Monday of penalties, including fines and loss of campus network and Wi-Fi access if they didn't get vaccinated.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. You can't even do your work in college without internet.
That's ridiculous.
I mean, you all heard Biden this afternoon.
Washington Hospital removing patients from transplant list for being unvaccinated. Now, I told some of you who were so anti-vaccine, and I'm not giving out medical advice. You get the vaccine or don't, depending on what your research tells you. But I've told some of you, don't be so proud. Don't think you're going to be standing up against the man. They know how to put the pressure on you, and they'll make you do what you want.
What they want.
What they want, right. Thank you.
They're not gonna make me, sorry.
Yeah, they put your head in a
Well, they'll have to
vice.
hold me down.
They
That's
put
all
your
I
head in the
got
bottom.
done. It depends how far we get.
They put a bullet to your brain.
I
You'll...
thought we were gonna be raptured up there.
So this brings up a very important point. Okay? The church will not go through the wrath of God. We have not been appointed to the wrath of God. That's what the 7 years of tribulation is. That's God pouring out His wrath here on the earth. But the church for 2,000 years has been going through persecution. We're not immune from persecution at all. And it's going to ramp up. So we're going to look then in Revelation 13, and we looked at this last week as well. Revelation 13, we're going to connect up some data points in this. Revelation 13, and that should be verse 1 beginning. And I stood upon the sand of the sea. Now, wherever in the Bible you should take it literally, take it literally. Wherever it should be taken figuratively, take it figuratively. Context is usually not difficult to understand. This is obviously figurative. In fact, we have it interpreted over in chapter 17 that the sea, the scripture literally says the sea is the masses of people and the ethnic groups and the languages. So I stood upon the sand of the sea. So John's standing on the shore and he's looking out at the sea of the masses of people. And I saw a beast rise up out of that sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were like the feet of a bear, his mouth the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, and his seat, and great authority. So the beast is going to get this from the dragon. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death. And his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, who gave power unto the beast. So the beast is this antichrist figure, the political. The dragon gives him power. And they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him? Remember 2 Thessalonians 2. The Antichrist is going to go into the temple. He's going to sit in the temple and convince himself that he's God. And he's going to make everyone in the world bow down and worship him. That's what's coming. And he opened his mouth in verse 6. Well, I'm sorry, verse 5. And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. That connects up with what Paul said about him, what Daniel said about him. He's going to speak great things, things that you would think anybody would even say. And power was given unto him in verse 5 to continue 3.5 years. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. So we have earth dwellers and we have them that dwell in heaven. So let's talk about what's going on in the world, if we can, without crying. What has happened with Afghanistan, it may be the most consequential thing that's happened in our lifetime. And that's after coming past 2020 with COVID-19. What Biden has done with this, getting out of Afghanistan the way he did. I mean, I'm not smart, and I could have figured out a planned way to make everything right and then walk away and say, I'm not responsible. That's not what he did. He just walked away.
Now the whole world sees that he's not smart.
So the implications of this are, note it, we have now moved prophetically into post-America world. The influence of America is not found in prophecy. Okay? Up until now, we were the world power. You couldn't do anything without dealing with the United States. We have now, I believe, moved into an era where the United States is receding.
Yep.
And that's what has to happen prophetically. That's what, we're not there. We're not there in prophecy. And so we're seeing one more step moving in this direction, sadly. So let's talk about some of these areas. What does what happened in the last couple of days mean to Afghanistan? Well, we could talk the rest of the night for what that is. We talked a little bit about it before we prayed. The implications of this in Afghanistan are, they are what they are. There was a little bit of hope that maybe democracy would take foothold. And America has done that across the world. There are many nations for which we have brought democracy. Germany, the Philippines. There are many places that America has successfully brought democracy. We never invaded anybody to take them over like other world powers have always done. But we brought stability and democracy. Not so in Afghanistan. It is at least as bad as Vietnam or worse. You know, I had somebody stand in front of my desk one time in a crisis and an emergency for which that person was responsible. And they said, Pastor, I've told you everything. I'm not holding anything back. And my immediate thought was, she's lying to me. And she was. Big time. Huge lying to me. We will not see helicopters taking people off of rooftops like in Vietnam. There's no scenario under which that will happen. My first thought was, that's exactly what's going to happen. There's no way around it. And that's what happened. So for Afghanistan, this is huge. For the people in Afghanistan, inestimable. But it's not just Afghanistan, China. Come to me, Taiwan.
Oh, yeah.
We'll have you back. There's nobody to stand against us now. Now, there might be war. America might still try to do it, but it will be a lost cause. And a whole lot of other things. China is where our phones come from.
Yep.
There is rare earth material that's required in our phones that pretty much comes from China or now Afghanistan. This is what it means for China. It means more money. If you want the truth, follow the money. China could not be happier at every turn. Not only do we look like fools and weak, but now they're going to be able to go in and get these resources for which they will be able to make money off from. Iran. What do you think Iran thinks of this? Iran, when they knew this was coming, according to Amir, they were already making plans to move out. And I'm sure right now they're already doing that. America will be out of Iraq, and Iran will be in Iraq full power. And they are arch enemies, of course, of Israel. Israel, what does this mean for Israel? Now I want you to think about what it would mean if you were an Israeli and yesterday you knew that the most powerful force on the earth, the United States of America, had your back. You wake up today, America is not that power, and they don't have your back. Who stands with Israel now? Nobody.
I just heard Iran has almost got weapons grade uranium too.
Yeah.
They probably already did, and we're just finding it out.
Yeah,
Well,
they probably have it for a
we
while.
facilitated it.
Yeah. So Amir put this on his Telegram feed today. How the world is viewing the recent events in Afghanistan, the implications for Islam of the United States. Isn't that awful to read? The U.S. defeat
Yeah,
in Afghanistan.
that's what
A Muslim teacher in Pakistan explained that it will pave the way for a Muslim army to march on Jerusalem. Now, I went and listened to this guy for a little bit, and he's saying exactly that. This changes everything for Israel. Now, Israel, well, we'll talk a little bit more before we get done about the implications for Israel. Israel's surrounded and no big brother. And we have nobody but the President of the United States and all the Democrats who support him and all the people who voted for him to thank for it. They're going to have to own it. And what does this mean for NATO? The United States is not the power now that it was. The United States was promising NATO that they would come in and help if Russia ever came against them. NATO being Germany, all those European nations. And so that was the buffer zone between Russia and Europe. Now, how do you suppose Putin's feeling about that?
wonderful.
Empowered.
Yeah.
And well, he should. Post-America world. I'm sorry to be so discouraging and depressing. This is the sea change that has taken place.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
I'd like to put a positive spin on it, but I'm not a Democrat. I don't know how to go about that. So, the implications for our day. We have been talking, you know there's coming a one world government, a one world religion. So we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. The one world religion, we can read about that in Revelation. We read about that already, didn't we, in Revelation 13. So that beast is going to stand up, and his power is going to be derived from the dragon. We have an event in history, the Tower of Babel, that is a prophetic event. There are some of these events in history that are so striking that they dovetail with what is predicted is going to take place during the tribulation. And so Nimrod is that poster boy for what's coming from the past. And just one little footnote. If you want to know what was so wrong about Nimrod and the Tower of Babel, it says that they had brick for stone. I remember the first time I ever read that and I thought, oh, what's the difference? Well, there's a huge difference.
Oh, yeah.
One of them is man-made and one of them is God-made.
Amen.
That kind of tells you everything you need to know about Nimrod and where he was wanting to lead people and where the Antichrist is going to lead people anywhere, in any way he can, away from God. So we've got that as a picture, and we've got the prophecy of this beast that's going to stand up out of the masses of the nations of the world. He's going to be empowered supernaturally by the devil, by the dragon. So in Revelation 17, we will look at a one world religion, the unified world religion that is coming. Revelation chapter 17, and beginning in verse 1. Revelation 17:1, and there came one of the 7 angels, which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, and I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. Okay, so prophetically, symbolically, a whore is, well, it's symbolized, Israel was symbolized as a whoring after the nations and away from God. And so Israel had gone after a whore, a harlot. And so this is the picture that we have in Revelation, a religious authority. And this religious authority, this great whore, is sitting upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. Okay, so now if we're talking about religious, right, and spiritual, there's going to be something spiritual, something churchy, if you will, that these kings of the earth are going to commit fornication with this woman. And the inhabitants of the earth, there's our earth dwellers, have been made drunk on the wine of her fornication. Whatever else that means, it seems to me that they're going to say, wow, I didn't know you could get by with that. And they're going to be drunk on the wine of her spiritual fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunk. She was drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. Now, don't misunderstand that. He's just saying, I was blown over. I was blown back. I was destroyed by what I saw. It was off the charts, more than I could have imagined, John would say. So, a unified world religion. Nimrod, in his day, as that poster boy, in that day he not only established a unified government, he brought all the nations together. All the people were together. And God had said they weren't supposed to be. But he brought them all together into unified world government. And he also established a unified religion. They all had that same religion. And it was perverse. It was just like what we've been reading about this whore sitting on a beast in the book of Revelation. So Nimrod married these two together. In fact, his power in government was very much married to his this new religion that he'd established. And for whatever it's worth, it was the mother-child religion. Yes?
A quick question. How it's talking about the woman was drunken with the blood of the saints. Is that the slaughtering of the people who found Christ during the tribulation?
Well, so I don't know, but I'll tell you what I think. I think it's a reference to the history of the Catholic Church and all the saints they've destroyed and bloodied over the years. And in the millions. I mean, it's beyond imagination when you get to finding out the history. But this could also be the saints of Jesus Christ during the tribulation. It could be both. It could be one as a picture of what's coming. Matthew 24:24, Jesus giving a private briefing to the disciples when they said, when are these things going to be? When the temple is going to be destroyed? When are these things going to be? The end, what's it going to be like? And so Jesus he gave 3 of them a private briefing, and then to the fuller disciples later on. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Now this is tribulation saints, okay? This is during the tribulation. And leading up to that and into that, there's going to be false Christs and false prophets. So he warned us. He told us what's coming. So as these things happen in the tribulation, they're not going to happen in a vacuum, so to speak. In other words, the Antichrist is already building towards these things with a false religion now. Let me tell you about a meeting back in 2020. One world religion agreement signed by Roman Pope Francis and Islamic Grand Imam leader of Egypt's Al-Azhar marks the end times. So they had this meeting. You see in red here the title of the meeting. Document on Human Fraternity for World Peace and Living Together. These two, you could say, religious world powers came together and signed an agreement. Now, to me, I don't really much care what was in the agreement. That these two powers came together and signed an agreement, that's all I need to know.
Yep.
And they had a term for it, wow, a dozen years ago or more now, called Chrislam. It's a combination of Islam and Christianity, Chrislam. And you'd be surprised that even the Southern Baptist preachers who have bought into that. And in fact, if we would begin to talk about the perversity that's happening in the Southern Baptist Convention, we'd be here for the rest of the evening. So any thoughts about that before we move on? So there they are, shaking hands. And it looks like the Islamic guy doesn't even know how to shake hands right. This is very bad. This is very good. This is very prophetic, whichever way you want to look at it. Things are shaping up. Honest to goodness, in the last year and a half, things have happened.
Moved pretty fast. Yep.
Not like in my lifetime. Okay. There we are. So this unholy alliance that's going to take place is going to include this trinity unholy. The antichrist, the beast, the false prophet, the religious power, and they're going to be empowered and energized and enabled by the Satan himself, by the dragon in the book of Revelation. Not just Revelation, he's dragging other places too. So let's talk about that system of the dragon that's coming along. You've heard about, in the last, 4 or 5 years, I've been hearing about China's social credit score. China already has in place a credit score where every person in China gets a score based on how they're relating as a Chinese person. Every organization they belong to, every habit they have, everything about them. They get a credit score. And we think that's awful. Awful. But in the United States, we already have the ESG that's coming. The ESG. ESG stands for the Environmental, Social, and Governance, and refers to the three key factors when measuring the sustainability, I hate that word, sustainability and ethical impact of an investment in a business or company. Most socially responsible investors check companies out using ESG criteria to screen investments. In other words, already in the United States, Wells Fargo, etc., they're already using ESG to determine who they will loan money to, who they will do business with. Now, it's not just business. It's personal. There she is, the whore on the beast. I mean, Maxine Waters. She's not the antiChrist, but I'll bet she knows him and is friends with him.
She's cute. She's his mom.
Okay, let's continue to be Christian about it. So Maxine Waters, she's bringing legislation. This was as of July 12th this year. She's bringing legislation, the Comprehensive Credit Act. What could be wrong with that? Sounds harmless enough. And the Protecting Your Credit Score Act of 2021. Well, who wouldn't want to protect their credit score? Right? So, the bill was previously introduced by a member of the Democratic squad and would implement a new system similar to that of China. They didn't think of it on their own. They got it from someplace else. Good credit is a gateway to wealth. And lower class people, a politically incorrect term, she would say people of color, are being held down because of our systemic racism. Everything about our laws, rules, and regulations, everything about our government is systemically racist. All the rules are set against people with color. And this is going to fix that.
Oh, yeah.
Let me jump to the end. What that means is when you go to apply for a loan, if you're black, you'll get the loan, whether you've got good credit score or not. If you're white, you'll have to go to the back of the line until others have gotten it first. That's the long and short of it.
Yep.
And it's already in place. It's already going on under the surface that we don't even know about.
Most likely those people that they let through without checking aren't gonna even pay their loan and they'll get,
Well, yeah.
so then what are they gonna do?
And that got us into trouble before. Obama pushed it till people were able to get loans
Yeah,
that
They shouldn't have gotten.
they shouldn't have gotten. I shouldn't have been getting it if my credit score was like that.
yeah.
It's not a race thing. The white race is not superior to the black race. Has anything to do with race as far as I'm concerned.
Amen. Yeah. Amen.
But what's coming is pure evil. It will begin with innocent standards, but will progress to the social justice causes. And I think we're probably already there if we knew it. Black Lives Matters, hate speech, support of certain ex-presidents, those will determine your actual credit score. How are they going to know these things? How are they going to put together my file? How are they going to know that about me? There's a bunch of ways.
Oh, yeah.
And like I said last week, I've already ruined myself on Facebook, Twitter, emails. Yes, did you know that Google takes a picture of every email you make. Did you know that? That's just the tip of the iceberg. That's been going on for decades now. So your organizational membership, if you are a Southern Baptist, or if you're a member of Coventry Estates Baptist Church, that's a hate speech organization. You get to go to the back of the line. You know, and it'll start with loans, but it'll end up with going into the grocery store. The mark of the beast, the name or the number, his name or the number 666, you're going to have, you're going to have to be in the system in order to buy or sell. Oh, let's see, businesses right now. I don't want to waste your time, but this is really important, and it's coming. So calculating your business credit score, whether your business has paid taxes on time, whether your business maintains necessary licenses, whether the business fulfills environmental protection requirements, product quality standards. See, that's where to start. Who would argue with those things? We're all on board with wanting those things. That's not where it's going to end up. In China, already, face recognition cameras everywhere. Already they have the file on everybody, and they know whether you're somebody. And I thought this was funny when I first heard it. If you're guilty of loitering. Well, we don't think much about that here. We probably should, but in China, you're not being productive. You're wasting time. And if you get pegged as loitering, you have penalties that come. You don't get to travel, etc. Smoking in non-smoking areas, spending too much time on video games, paying bills on time, visiting your sick parents, spreading fake news, when driving, stopping in front of crosswalks. China knows all this stuff about their people. Artificial intelligence, mass amounts of information. Artificial intelligence can do something with that now. It's coming, though, that if you don't play by the rules, if you somehow offend as transgender in some way, just all kinds of things that will work against you. Pretty much, if you're a white Christian in America, you're doomed. Okay, we don't have time to go too much more into detail, but you see what's coming. Yes?
Okay, so I went to the dermatologist yesterday, and when I got home, they sent me an email to finish my profile. Okay, I've never seen this before, but this is where it's going. They ask for my sex, female or male. Then they ask for gender identity.
Just say not sure.
I know, I already filled
Yeah.
them in.
This is how many they had. They had gender identity, additional gender identity. Then they had sexual orientation, and additional sexual orientation. So you could pick bisexual, other, unknown, choose not to disclose, straight or heterosexual, lesbian, gay or homosexual, trans woman, gender queen. I don't even know what that is.
If you think that's bad for you, and I had one of those recently with a medical thing that I had to do. If you think that's bad for you,
I hadn't seen it before.
imagine if you're that doctor who has to be sure of all those things not to offend you when you go in there.
Yeah. I don't even know what gender queen is. I meant to look that up. I mean, it's like, and then you can just put other, or you
Can't you
can,
see the doctor walk in? Oh,
you can just put whatever you want.
first gender queen I've seen this
So
one.
if you can identify as anything, Steve and I were like, well, what's the future? What if you're a pedophile and you touch a little girl's hair and start touching her? Well, I identify as a little girl, so I can play with her. I mean, you don't know, if you start letting just anybody identify as
There's no line. You can't have a line.
It's gonna get really crazy.
I want to close because our time is within a couple of minutes of being done, but I want you to see this. So, the Festival of Lights, or Hanukkah, is that celebration. Something happened back in 160 BC. Antiochus Epiphanes outlawed Judaism. The Greek power came and in Israel made it illegal to read the Torah, teach your children Torah. All Judaism was made illegal. Okay? Until a guy came along, a son of a priest, his name was Judah. He got nicknamed Maccabee, which translated the hammer. Wouldn't you love to have that frog? Ah, the hammer. What's it to you? The hammer. He led a revolt and secured the temple for Israel again. Festival of Lights. The oil burned miraculously, and they light the 8 candles. All that. Okay. The Jewish leaders in that day compromised with Antiochus at first. They said, okay, if it'll mean peace for our people, we'll stop reading the Torah. We'll stop teaching it to our children. Okay, we'll compromise. Those Jewish compromisers are coming back. They're going to happen again. Just as assuredly as we have watched a corner turned with America receding. Now you watch, and I'm a prophet, but this isn't the Old Testament, so you can't stone me if I'm not right. We're going to see Israel's leaders begin to compromise all over the place.
Yeah.
And they think it'll be for survival. Okay, we're going to stop there.